Welcome to Credof. So in this video, I'm going to design these fonts. So I'm going to design the letters. I have already done the testing. I have created these letters and just installed the font in my PC as a TTF. But you can generate as many formats as possible. You can have the OTF, the WOFF, then WOFF2. Then you can import it in this project or just use it in your other designs, because also within the Credof.com you are able to create graphic designs and you're able to select the font that you want. So even your locally installed font will be accessible to your project, so you're able to do that. So once you generate your font and you give it a specific name and install it in your PC, you should be able to search for specific or the name of that font and it will appear here. So this is what I have done, and I have used it in my design, this one here, which is just the thumbnail. I mean the thumbnail for this video. You can see it's showing grade of 5. Then I have downloaded a lot of these fonts as I was testing out. Then this is my Microsoft document, MS Word, and you can see that this is the font that I have used here, which is a grade of 5. So enough for introduction. Let's head to now the design and the generation of the font. To get started, I will navigate to credof.com. Then I'll continue. I'm already signed in, so this is going to lead me to the dashboard. So these are my existing projects. So I'm going to create a new design. And if I scroll down, there's this section where you can select the font design. So this is the workspace. We have the canvas at the middle, and within this canvas, we have the controls of the canvas on the right panel. So you can adjust the center, the baseline, the height, the cap, and the ascender of your font. Then on the left panel, we have the Boolean operations, which will only be active once you have selected a specific shape. And then we also have the shapes, which are also inactive because I haven't selected any letter here. So once I select a letter, then they become active so that I'm able to design those letters. Then apart from that, on the bottom of the canvas, we have this panel as well, which is going to help you to preview your font. That is the uppercase and the lowercase preview. Because once you start designing, let me just click on A, it's going to, or you can as well just write the letters that you want to preview here. So once you start designing them, then you'll be able to see the preview at the bottom of your screen. Apart from that, we also have this small navigation at the top of your canvas. Here we have a measure, which gives you a ruler that you can use to measure the stroke or specify the width of the stroke of your font. So you can as well just type the values that you want and the ruler is going to adjust. Of course, it's also rotational, so you can rotate it so that you're able to get the thickness of that font at any angle. Then apart from this, we also have the grid. You can enable the grid so that it helps you to position your font. And then, of course, you can activate and deactivate. Then there's this corner, scale corner, so that if you have a circle here, for example, this one, so if this is active, it's going to scale in all directions when I activate it. But if it's not active, then it's only going to scale towards the section you're pulling it to. we are going to find the uses of this as we continue designing this font. So meanwhile, you can see that it has already started doing the preview of my font. You see my A looks like this. It's just a ball. Then all the other fonts that have not been designed, they will take the default values that we have here. So I think I've already mentioned this. So we have the uppercase letters A to Z, then we have the lowercase A to Z as well. Then we have the digits, which are going to appear in both cases, the uppercase or lowercase. Okay, so I'm just going to select then delete button on my keyboard, and that is gone. So it goes back to the A. Before I do that, I just want to rename my project to a grid of 5. Then when I'm on the canvas, I haven't added any letter here. You can see that it has given me a default font name here as my type space. I also want to give it a family name of grid of 5, like that. Then I'll start now designing the font. So let's start with the A. Of course, I'm just going to design a few letters only to give you a picture, because designing all these letters requires quite a lot of time to be able to get all of them done. So let's start with the A. So what I'm going to do is just to get the ring and put it there. You can as well just scale back, and I want this to take the whole height. I'm not going to adjust these other values for the canvas. I'll just keep them the way they are. Then let me just scale the canvas a little bit. Then for the stroke or the thickness of my font, I want to use 90 units. So I'll enable the measure. Then I'll just click here to adjust the units to 90, like that. Then let me scale this. Then drag this measure here. So I'm able to increase the inner circle so that I get the thickness that I want, like that. Then I'm just going to disable the measure, and this is how my font looks like. The other thing I'll do, I mentioned that I'm not going to adjust the values, but I think I will just adjust this space between the space where the font ends, the shape ends, I mean the letter ends, so that the next letter is going to start from here. So I just want to reduce that gap between the letters, and that is going to be controlled by this bearing. So let me reduce it to 20, then 25, that. So if I drag back, this is the starting line of my font. So I have a very small gap here. So let me just drag it to the bottom. That is how my A is going to look like. I'm going to get a rectangle here so that I'm able to drag all the way. I can as well also measure it so that the thickness is 90 units. So I'm going to drag it here so that I'm able to scale it, drag it. So it uses the same thickness as my ring. So let me disable the ruler. Then I'm going to position this here, and I want this to move up so that it takes the height of the circle. Then for the lower side, I'm also going to drag it a little bit up to here. I'm not wrong, like that. Then drag it outside a little bit, like that. So I want to join these two shapes. It's very easy to do that. I'll select the first one, then hold Shift key on my keyboard, select this other. So it has selected all of them. Then I'm just going to create a union between the fonts, I mean the shapes, and this is now one shape. So if I'm going to drag that, position it there, you can see it's already creating that at the bottom. And even on the font, I mean the letter box here, we can see it. So the design, as I had shown in the intro of the video, is like this is chopped or has some wavy appearance at the bottom. So in that case, I'm just going to add a circle, and I'm also able to change the color in that. So I'm going to use this circle to cut off a section of this letter like that. You can rotate the circle if you want, or the shapes if you want. You can change its appearance. So I will click on it, then hold Shift, click on the other shape, then scroll up to the Boolean operations and do the subtraction. And that is going to cut it off. So I'm just going to delete this. And that is how my letter looks like. So you can also do the finer tuning using the node editing. So if I right click, let me stop it. So you just right click on the shape and click on the node editing, and you're able to do finer tuning on your letter. So let me just remove this, because I have joined several, I mean two shapes, and it's creating a lot of nodes. Some of them are not necessary. So what I'm going to do is just to drag this and rotate it a bit like that. And I think this is done. So I'm just going to stop editing the nodes and scale back, and letter A is done, at least for the lowercase. So let's do letter B, which is almost similar to this, but now this limp is higher. I'll also do a little adjustment of the cap so that it's not that long. So the cap is here. I'm going to use 550 in that. I think it should be 600. 550 is quite shorter. Yeah, that's better. So for the B, I just want to use this. I'm going to right click, then copy. Then I'll go to the B, then right click. Then I have the option to paste. Then this is selected. It gives you the option to flip, and that looks like a B. So the only thing that I need to do is make this long. So in that case, I'm going to bring in some rectangle. Let me just scale so that it's more visible like that. Then I'm going to drag this to this section here. Let me make it there. Then this is selected. I'll hold Shift, then select the other shape. Then I'm just going to create a union, and that is one shape. Then you'll notice that this section here is not very smooth, so I need to activate the node editing. So I'll right click on this, then edit nodes. So I'm going to remove this, is not necessary. And I'm also going to remove this, is not necessary as well. So there were several of them. I'll remove it completely. Then I'll also remove this, that. Then if I scale back, you notice that this is not very straight. So I'll bring in the grid. And from there, I can just adjust this node towards the inner side so that it's a straight line. Then I'll right click and stop editing the nodes. Then I'll also disable the grid. And that is has created the B font, letter. So let me scale back to 100% of my canvas. Then I'll go to the C font, letter. So it's simple to do that. I'll just use the ring again, and it should scale all the way to the height of all the letters that I have set. Then the other thing that I need to do now is just to add the thickness or the stroke, adjust the strokes. I'll bring in the measure, then turn it to 90 units, then drag it here. So I'll just click on this and adjust like that. Then I'll disable the measure. So the C is coming up. I just need to create some space here. I'll use a rectangle to chop that space. So let me just adjust the color so that we are able to see the contrast. You can see as I drag the font, the shapes, it's able to detect the center line on the X and the Y axis of the other shape. So you can easily align that to the center. Then I'm going to scale through the center so that if I drag this, you can see both sides are moving like that. So that's enough. So I'm just going to select this and do the subtraction. So make sure the shape that is doing the subtraction sits on the top. So if you click on the shape, you see you have the options to take it to front or backward. So you should be able to do that. So let me just delete this, and we have that space there. So we have our letter C. So the next thing I'm going to do is just to create some wavy appearance at the bottom so that we create that impression that we have in A and B. So to do this, I'm just going to use a circle. I'm going to change its color to purple or any color that is going to contrast this. Then I'm just going to bulge it. Sorry, I selected the wrong one. So it's this in that, and probably just rotate. Let me scale it. Control, then mouse wheel will help you to scale up or down. So I'll select this. It's already on top of the black. So select it, then select the black, then do the subtraction. So if I drag this and just delete it, we have this shape here. So we need to create some wave. So I'll turn to node editing and just try to drag this. Like that. Then I'm going to right click and disable that. It doesn't look very smooth, so you can just go back to node editing and adjust it, then stop editing the nodes. Yeah, that's much better. So you're done with the letter C, and you can see the preview here is coming out nicely. The next now is the D, which is similar to B. So I'm just going to click on the B font, then just scale back my canvas. Then I'm going to right click and copy this. Then I'll click on the D. Then I'll paste the B that we've copied and just flip it like that. And we have the D. So sometimes when you copy, paste, and flip, you don't see it taking effect. So to achieve that, you just drag it a little like that, and it's going to take the effect. So I'm going to adjust the position. Yeah, and we have our D. So the next one is the E, which is much similar to C. but I'm going to do that from scratch. So let me click on the E. Then I'll use a ring. I'm just going to drag it so that it takes the maximum height. Then I'll drag it to the center. Like that. Then I'll adjust the thickness of the stroke. So I'll change that to 90 units. Then just bring it to this area here. Then I'm able to drag the inner circle. Then I'll just disable the measure. Then I'll bring in the rectangle so that we create this. Let me disable the center scaling. So I just want this to be at the center here. And I'll estimate thickness. Then I'll click it, then click shift, hold shift, then click the other one, then do the union so that it's one shape. Then I'm going to scale it. Let me just bring in another rectangle that is going to help me subtract some space here. Let me just adjust the color for the contrast. Then take it to this section here. That. Then I'm going to select, hold shift, select the other one, then subtract, then remove the rectangle. I'm just going to right click this so that I edit the nodes to remove the ones that are not necessary. I think everything is okay. And the only thing I need to do is go back to the select mode, and then I subtract some space at the bottom using a circle or a ring. So I'm just going to scale back. So when you try to add a shape to your canvas on a scaled mode, most of the time you'll find that that shape is going to be put outside the canvas. So if something like that happens to you, just click on a different font, letter, then click back to your letter that you are editing before, and that is going to be brought back. So I think it's a bug that needs to be fixed. I'll work on that. So what I'm going to do is just change the color and try to position this other shape here, and just hold shift, then click the bigger shape, then do the subtraction, then click on it again and just remove it, then do the node editing and just create something that looks like this. Then go back to the select mode. So our letter E is done. Let's move to F. So just click on the F. So the F is a bit tricky, but I know I'm going to get it right. So the first thing I'll do is just to bring in the rectangle, and I'm going to measure it to 90 units. That's the thickness. Then I'll just take it there. Then I'm going to scale it by dragging this edge, and we have the desired thickness. So I'm just going to bring it to the bottom, scale it to the bottom, then scale it up. Then the curved part is going to go up to the curve section. So I'm going to bring in the arc or the arch, I don't know. It's the arc, yeah. Then position it here. I'm just approximating the thickness of this one. So let me scale it a little. Then I'm going to duplicate this instead of creating, okay, let me add another rectangle if I want. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to scale it and change the color so that we have this contrasting color, and just place it at the center of that arc. Then select the arc, then do the subtraction, and that is going to remove a half of that arc. So I don't want it to go beyond this height. So what I'm going to do is to scale down in terms of height the rectangle like that. Then just position it a little. After that, I'm selecting this, then selecting the other one, then just create a union. Then I'm going to edit the nodes and remove the nodes that are not necessary. So hold Control and scale. I suspect there are several nodes here because this section doesn't look very smooth. So if I click on this and click on X, it's going to remove one of it. See that? I only need one node. So on the other section as well, there are several. No, I've removed excess. So I'll just do Control Z or Z to bring it back. Then the next thing I'll do is just to try to remove this and see if I have several of nodes there as well. Yeah, it's only one, so Control Z to bring it back. Then I'll opt out of the node editing to the select mode. Then the other thing I'll do is just to try to change the color of this back to black and add it here. Then I'm just going to scale down like that so that we create an F. Then I'll select it. It's not selectable because now the bigger F is hiding it. So I'll just right click on the bigger F and take it back. So send it back, and this one is now selectable. Then I'll select the bigger F, then just do the union. And I'll go back to the node editing so that I adjust this to make it wavy. Like that. And I can even add a node here. So if I just click on the edge, it's able to add a node. And when that node is selected, you can see that there is smoothing or sharpening. So if you want to create a curve, you're just going to smoothen that. And these lines adjust the length of the arc that this is going to create, like that. Then I'll just right click and opt out of the node editing. I'll move to the next letter, which is the G. So I'll just click on G, then scale back to at least 100. Then I'll bring in the ring and scale it to take the full height of the letter or this section that you have already configured. Then I'll bring in the measure, add 90 units, and try to estimate that thickness. Then I'll disable the ruler or the measurement and just try to scale this down because you don't expect the G to take the whole size like the A, like that, and just drag it to the top so that this circle takes this height. Then I'll bring in a rectangle. I'm just going to estimate this thickness. like that. Then I'm going to scale all the way to this part here. I'm also going to scale it downwards to take this space. Then I'll bring in the arc. I'm just going to rotate it upwards so that it's able to face that. Then just scale it down to match that thickness. Then let me just adjust it a little like that. What I'm going to do next is maybe just to scale this down again a little like that. Yeah, that looks better. So I'm going to select the rectangle and the circle, then create a union. Then I'll select the arc, then now the joint circle and the rectangle to create another union. And we have one shape, which doesn't look very nice. What I'm going to do is scale this. You can see there's a glitch here. So what I'm going to do is just to go to the node editing mode and remove some of the nodes. I've removed the wrong one, so Control Z to bring it back. So I'll select the squared one, which is a sharp one. Then click on that to remove it. And then these nodes are not necessary because it's just a straight line running from the top to the bottom. So I'm going to remove all of them. Sorry, I just scaled accidentally. So I'll click on that, remove, click, remove, click, remove like that. So this runs a straight line, then we have a curve. And I think everything else looks okay. I'll opt out of the the line mode. So I'm just going to do some chopping here. I don't know which section to add it, but this part here, let me change the color and just rotate this and select, then do the subtraction and delete the shape. Maybe if I go to the node editing, I think I'll just leave it like that. So we have our G. The next letter that we're going to adjust is the H. Before I do that, I just want to move this G all the way to the starting point like that so that we don't create unnecessary gaps. So to do the H, I'll just select the letter H, then I'll bring in this circle again. This time round, I'm going to make it a bit narrower like that. Then once it's narrow, then I expect even the units to be fixed already, to be less than 90. So it's already less than 90. What I'm going to do is just to make it, let me move this out of the way, make it thicker like that. By just maybe scaling. Yeah. So let me disable the ruler. Then I'm just going to bring in a rectangle. Let me drag this to the top. It's a bit thick here, but what is going to direct us is how it's appearing at the bottom. So don't worry about that. So what I'm going to do is to bring in the rectangle, and I'm just going to scale it so that it fits all the way to the bottom. Then I'm going to do Control D to duplicate it and move it to the right. like that. Then I'm going to make this one shape, so I'll just maybe before I do that, I need to clear this space here, so I'll duplicate this rectangle again and change its color and just put it here so that it touches this other rectangle and also just touches the edge of this other one here. That. So I'll select the purple and just select the, maybe before I do that, I want to move it so that it touches the center of the circle. So I'm going to select it and select our circle, then just subtract. If I move it away, you can see that it's not perfect, but can always adjust this. So I'm going to move this other side rectangle. I'm just going to scale it all the way to the curve section, maybe beyond it a little bit there. Then I'm going to remove this purple rectangle. Then I'm going to join things here. So the semicircle that has been formed, create a union. So click on it again. There's these other ones, so I'm going to right click and take it backwards, send it back so that I'm able to select this, select the bigger shape, and I just create a union like that. Then with the help of the nodes, I should be able to fix those rough parts. So we don't need these nodes here. This is supposed to be a straight line running to the bottom, so I'm going to delete them so that we don't have those breaks there. Then even here, we need to remove the squared one, which is this one here. Here you also have 2, so I'm going to remove the squared one. Here, how many do we have? 2 as well, so I'm going to remove the square one. And there's still 2. No. So Control Z to bring this back and just adjust it. Any other section? No, I think it's okay. So I'll just opt out of editing this. Then we need to slash this at the bottom to create that shape. So I'll just go back to node editing and drag this to the top like that. Let's activate the grid so that we are able to get straight lines here. You can also already see that this needs to be dragged towards this line. And this is not even as well, so we drag it a little like that. Yeah. Then I'll also drag this to create such a shape. And I'm just going to disable the node. And we have our letter H. It doesn't look very nice, but much better. You can always play with it so that you come up with your desired shapes for each letter. So let me disable the grid. Then I think I'm going to stop here for the letter editing. You can always follow the same steps that I have or explore many more steps here so that you're able to create your desired letter. So apart from just using the shapes, you can use the line tool. When you activate it and just click on the canvas, you're able to draw anything that you want like that. So when you join it, it creates that shape for you. Then you can just add the circles and click on that, then do the subtraction, and you see the shapes that you're creating. You can as well just edit the nodes, make all of them, like select all the nodes and make them smooth or sharpen them back. Or you can make one section smooth, or you make it sharp. So it's upon you. So let me just opt out of this and remove it. So what I'm going to do is just to export this font now. So what is going to happen is that the fonts that I have not designed are now going to display. For example, if I import this in this project and try to use it in my designs, but let's say I have a specific word that I want to design its font, so I don't have to design all the letters. So I'm just going to design those specific words. So when I import the font and use it in the design, then it's going to look okay. So what I'm going to do is just to export this as a TTF. And that has been exported. So I'm able to install this in my Windows PC. So let me just drag it. You can see that the letters that we have designed are here, like the E, like the A and D, they're all appearing here. So I'm going to show you that in the design. So after adding this, we can install. So I'll go ahead and do that, and it has installed in my PC. So right now, if I open like Microsoft Word project here, I should be able to use that font. So let me do that. So just open the Microsoft Word project and let me write AB and just increase the font maybe to 50. And that, let me just select this and go to the font. Where is the font? It should be this one here. So if I scroll all the way to grid of 5, where's grid of 2? Grid of 5 is here, and you see it's adjusting to the font that we have just designed. So we've designed A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. Those are the letters we have designed. H, I. So it's going to take the default ones that we have here, which is this. So all the other letters are going to appear the way they are. They are not designed by us. So that's what we have. Then as you can as well, just if you're creating like a website, maybe a React.js project, of course, what you've just downloaded, you add this file to your project and you refer to it, and it's going to display that for you. But what I'm going to do is to try to use it in my own design within the Gridov platform. So to be able to achieve that, I need to close the Chrome browser because sometimes it has issues. I'll close it and reopen. And then I'm just going to open the gridov.com again. And then see my font is here. So I'm going to create a new design like an Instagram post. And I'm just going to add some letter here that says let me call it Abdi. And that, then I should be able to select the font here. I'll choose my fonts so that I'm able to use the fonts within my my local computer. If you're doing it for the first time, the browser is going to ask you for permission to allow access of your local font. So if I search for Gridov, actually Gridov has not appeared here yet. I only see Gridov 4. So I need maybe just to restart the PC completely to be able to use the font that I have installed. But just to show you, I have other fonts that I had created before, and I added it here. So like grid of 1, it looked like this, and I'm just able to add it. But if I try to type another font that is was not part of my design, then it's going to skip it. At least that is how it works in this system. But once the font is added, you're able to do all the other things related to font, like changing its color, adjusting its alignment, making it a gradient, making it radial or a linear gradient, depending on what you want. Then maybe we just adjust the color of the canvas and take back our font to white. So we drag that and just drag it. So that is how you can easily design your own font and use it in your project. So Gridov has a lot of stuff you can do, or a lot of designs you can create. I advise you to sign up and play with it and see what you can create. Thank you for taking your time to watch the video. See you in the next video.